Hello, my dear viewers. I'm Olga Demchuk, a researcher of the inner world of personality. Today, I want to talk about something I wish to understand within myself, about inferiority. We all very much want to be complete, to not need anyone, to be self-sufficient. And the internet is full of all sorts of advice. You must handle everything yourself, learn and rely on yourself. You should be independent and self-sufficient. And these slogans sometimes lead a person to an even worse state, sometimes even to depression. Let's try to understand what is happening in our inner world. So there are people around us, and these people influence us in some way. And I think that many of you who observe other people even understand why they succeed in one thing or another. For example, in personal life, why this person is able to build a family, specifically thanks to their partner. Because if you put another person in their place, they wouldn't be able to tolerate it. Or, for example, why someone is able to be in a partnership, I mean in business, with someone else. If you take away one of the partners, the business immediately starts to deteriorate. I think you can recall a situation where there were two people. One balanced the other, the business was profitable, but if you remove one of them, and everything starts running at a loss. Let's try to understand who these people are, thanks to whom we are able to function fully. The last thing we want to admit is that we need someone. To do so would be to sign off on our own inadequacy. And that's why when we analyze our activities, relationships, or business, we want to say, it's all me. Many times in my life, I've heard people say, this was my idea, I achieved this, I made this happen, I organized this, I did this, as if they were completely alone, and the people who were by their side simply didn't exist. Well, sometimes they might remember someone from their team. For example, they might recall their wife or husband or some of their friends. No. But if we start to look more closely, we'll see that these people are there. And I want to warn you right away not to see yourselves as somehow flawed. There's no need to fix or treat this right now. Watch the video to the end and you'll understand that it's not quite like that. Don't rush to diagnose yourself with something and try to treat it. That's not really what stimulates our activity. First of all, there are those people who pull us upward. I think you've noticed, dear viewers, for example, that when you stop regularly watching, say, Olga Demchuk's videos, it's as if there's no one to wake you up, no one to stir you, and you start to forget things and feel like you're rolling away somewhere. I think that since you're watching this YouTube channel, I am precisely that person who pulls you upward. Well, in fact, that's my profession. I chose it. I'm a psychoanalyst, and clients come to me, some in very deep depression, and I am the one who pushes them upward. This upward push, on the one hand, is a form of help, but on the other hand, when you're around someone who pulls you upward, there's always a desire to rebel, to prove that you can do it on your own. And I see this with my clients when I say, all right, now it's time for you to do it yourself. Some clients, after achieving some small successes, immediately decide to go it alone. And then dominant patterns start to pull the person back into the same behaviors. So it's as if we absolutely need someone who will help pull us up a little. And having such a person is a necessity. You shouldn't see it as a personal shortcoming. Because our dominant patterns, especially if there were some vividly emotional events in infancy or childhood, will still draw us back into the same scenario. That's why the people who pull us upward are, on the one hand, those who highlight our sense of inadequacy in a way. But thanks to them right there, we don't freeze in this dominant configuration of ours. And so if such a person is present, they help us rise. That's wonderful. But of course, we need to consider what kind of relationship we have with this person, because certain pathologies can develop there, but if there's no one to lift us up, sometimes we can't achieve anything at all. And if such a person is needed, that's okay. We acknowledge it and build a partnership. The second type of person is someone for whom you want to live. This person can be anyone. For many, their children have become such people. For example, when you have a child and you realize that you need to provide for them, to earn money for their education, that you need to work hard and do your best, and then when you get used to making this your purpose and motivation in life, the child leaves and you are left with emptiness. Sometimes these people are loved ones or spouses, and if something goes wrong, it can feel as if your whole life collapses. In other words, if you take this person away, a void appears and a person falls into a pit. In this pit, it's important to understand that this is how the psyche has been structured. It has become accustomed to having someone to live for. And this sense of emptiness will persist until something else is found, an alternative. And again, I am not suggesting that this should be treated, because if a person lives only for themselves, that is selfishness. In that case, it's as if the person has no purpose beyond themselves. And so, even when guests come over, you feel like tidying up, as if it's for yourself. You do not truly require it for your own sake. That is why the specific individual for whom I want to live is quite often the very person who begins to reveal within me a certain potential that was entirely hidden and previously out of reach. In other words, this potential exists, but the psyche refuses to use that energy, believing that the small amount of energy available is enough. You don't need much. So when there is someone to live for, we don't try to fix it. Let's be grateful to these people. The third type of person is the one who offers support. If you analyze your successful periods, you'll find that there was someone there who supported you. This person might even be someone you don't personally know. For example, I know people write to me saying that they don't know me personally, but I am that person who supports them when there is someone we can lean on, not someone who pulls us upward by urging us to change, learn, grow, or become smarter, but someone who simply offers support, like a tuning fork we use to check ourselves against. I also have bloggers whom I watch, and they support me, even though we are not personally acquainted. These are the people with whom you can check what note you are resonating on to understand what is happening with you right now. And of course, there is direct support when someone says, "I'm for you, I'm with you, I need you," or "you are a good person." And all those stories about how praise is unnecessary, that I can handle everything on my own, that needing support is a weakness, it's all nonsense. You can dismiss it, of course, but by doing so, we also dismiss our own opportunities. That is, the potential that becomes available to us. It's like in a computer game. You complete a level, and the next one opens up to you. Offering support is a good habit, and naturally we want to be supported as well. It's like with likes. You can take content from a blogger, but you're too lazy to even leave a like or write a comment. It's all about me, 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 a person who only knows how to take. And it's quite difficult to realize your potential because true fulfillment comes from the ability to give. So, support my channel perhaps, or support your loved ones on social media. Don't be stingy. Likes are very important. But this kind of support, well, it's the same everywhere. In all the examples I've given, there are both pros and cons. For example, when someone relies solely on support in the form of likes, when that's their only fuel, they become very dependent on comments that praise them, and they start to sacrifice meaning, sacrifice some of their own values just so that people will give them likes. And this leads to a kind of hollowing out, even to a sense of emptiness inside. It's as if you start chasing after these comments, lose the meaning that interests you, and begin to simply please your audience. And then you end up feeling used by yourself. Professional burnout is when you've completely lost yourself and are working only for praise, only for likes. The fourth type of people is the most mysterious, the ones who balance out our neuroses. That is, all the people I mentioned before could also be included here, But these are our most enigmatic companions, the ones we're even ashamed to admit to ourselves. To admit it. For example, people we hate. We actually need this image, the image of an enemy. I would make a lot of videos about bad people, about when you need a scapegoat, someone against whom I can see myself as good. We need such people to channel all the darkness so that this darkness doesn't spill over onto our loved ones. That is, we get angry at them, hate them, make sarcastic remarks, and devalue them. And sometimes it happens that someone was very close to you, but then you had a falling out, and they become that scapegoat. So you constantly look for their flaws, feeding off of them. I told you at the beginning of the video that not everything needs to be fixed. It's like, choosing the lesser of two evils. If you really can't stop devaluing or making snide remarks, then at least be honest with yourself and admit that you need a little cushion to stick your pins into. Or like darts, when people play and throw darts, and in doing so, it provides us with a sense of relaxation in this peculiarly unusual manner. And then the individuals whom we choose to target, who must patiently suffer through this deep-seated need of ours to attack, to sink our teeth into someone, sometimes it just feels so vital. We need it so much that even unconsciously we interact with people who can handle us, who can withstand our outbursts. For some reason, our outbursts are okay for them. Someone else might not tolerate it, but for them, it's fine. It's as if we can let our madness out with them, and elsewhere we can be smart. As I tell my husband when I say silly things, I say, at least with someone, I can be foolish and not overthink. In other words, we need a space where we can relax, so to speak. Undoubtedly, it's important to understand that, for example, a woman lives with her husband. She used to poke at him with little needles, but then he goes to therapy or matures, becomes wiser, goes through something, and that's it. The game is over. That is, he starts to push back. And in such moments, you have to change. But when two people balance out each other's neuroses, that's a personal matter for each of them. So you should always look for these dark characters. They definitely exist. At the very least, you'll understand what it's like. You'll know how to do it, and you'll appreciate these people. Some people, for example, have those they don't envy, those with whom they compete. And in this competition, at least they have some energy, because if you take away the person they envy and compete with, the person just stops. Undoubtedly, as I've mentioned before in my videos, envy and competition are poor motivators because a person can push themselves to a breakdown. But if this neurosis is at least acknowledged, it already becomes easier. If you understand what you need, these for your dark side characters who balance out your neurosis. All our life partners balance out our neurosis. As people say, I want to find the one. In reality, we need to find someone who can tolerate us. That is, we live with and communicate for a long time with those who are able to tolerate us. And if, for example, with strangers we behave more properly, then our loved ones know all our secrets. And each of us thinks, I deserve a monument for living with you. And we always want to imagine that we are the ones who endure and no one endures us, that we are the only ones who suffer. But I have yet to meet people who didn't have to be endured. They simply don't exist. That is, everyone has a huge number of different nuances and peculiarities. And to find someone who can put up with you, I believe that's true happiness. And the fifth point, the fifth type of people, are those we fear. For our inner beast, which wants to climb on top of others, a firm leash is needed. And when there is someone we are afraid of, we don't have to restrain our own beast. It's the fear of this person we are afraid of that does this. I've even noticed how people are much more decent, smarter, and more interesting when they're afraid. But as soon as they stop restraining themselves, this boiling psychosis starts spilling over onto others. And that's why, when there is someone you fear, it's as if they organize and structure you. And people who have a lot of psychosis, of course, will experience excessive tension. But if there's less psychosis, then you think, thank goodness, there's someone I fear, so I'll be on time or I'll be responsible. But this can also turn into a state of paranoia, when the object you fear starts to haunt you. In other words, you are pursuing yourself, but it seems to you that you are constantly checking in with someone in your head. So, if you find yourself checking in with someone in your head, the first thing you need to understand is that you are actually checking in with yourself, with your own inner controller, with your supervising inner object. So, let's gather all these people together. The one who pulls us upward, saying, come on, I need you to get smarter, be more aware, learn, and so on. We kind of want to rebel against these people a little, like teenagers do. Those for whom we want to live, the one who supports us, the one who balances our psyche, and the one we are afraid of. That is to say, when you understand your own characteristics, when you recognize your limitations, you begin to see why you need certain people so much, to have them by your side, and you can arrange to have them in your life. And you learn to appreciate them. The ability to value those who are close to you is an important skill, because when you don't appreciate them, you start to take people for granted and fail to realize how much you actually need them. Then your life can take a sudden turn and you don't understand what has happened. And if you don't understand the reasons for this turn, it can start to get worse. That's why some symptoms can be treated while others need to be balanced. I'll wrap up here. Let me remind you that 2 of my books are available for purchase. 1 book is available in electronic format and 2 are in print. The first book is available in Ukrainian, Russian, and English, so feel free to purchase it. And in August, we are preparing a communication school, how to understand what kind of person someone is from just one phrase. I will say goodbye to you now. See you soon.